So it seems like the reform wheels are coming off quicker than I imagined. I predicted this. Inherently, far right parties are prone to self destruction, internal contradictions, and with Nigel Farage, he is the party. He is reform. He was UKIP. And in America, the Republicans will bend the knee to Trump. They'll just follow whatever he says. He's the leader. Rupert Lowe isn't like that. He seems like a bit of a maverick. People like him. He's very open with his beliefs, which must really frustrate Farage because he's quite disciplined and will moderate his language. Rupert Lowe doesn't do that. And I knew he'd be kicked out. I predicted it a few months ago, and I think it's going to happen. I think we're seeing the beginning of the end of reform. Quicker than I predicted. I thought it'd take at least a year, but we're seeing those internal contradictions. So let's get straight into the report.
Here's today's big question. Is Reform UK on the rocks? Well, that's what the Conservative Party are claiming today after Rupert Lowe, MP, MP Rupert Lowe has said that Nigel Farage acts like a messiah and needs to learn how to delegate. And he also said that if there are not changes, then he would not be by Farage's side at the next election. It's an astonishing interview in the Mail today with Andrew Pearce, who of course also works at GB News. And to discuss it, I'm joined in the studio by our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome to the show. So there's been talk about potential rifts within reform. Rupert Lowe, of course, is incredibly popular with the electorate, very outspoken, very wealthy, so he can say whatever he wants, doesn't even draw his salary. In fact, he gives it away.
Though, really. A grown-up party wouldn't let him say these things.
Yeah. So that's the first point. Let's talk about today's interview with Andrew Pearce.
That's right.
With Rupert Lowe.
Farage must have known he's been a liability from the beginning. I've said this in previous videos, like, he needs to rein him in. Like, there needs to be discipline. Like, Rupert Lowe is a businessman. He thinks he can just say, and it is popular with his base. They love him. But this isn't how politics work. You've got to play the game. And he will be gone in the next 6 months. If not, after this, sooner.
And the schism that seems to have caused.
So the Daily Mail says, in an interview with Andrew Pearce, who works for GB News too, Rupert Lowe tells him it's too early to know whether Nigel will deliver the goods. He can only deliver if he surrounds himself with the right people. He says we have to start behaving as if we are leading and not merely protesting. Nigel is a messianic figure who's at the core of everything that we do. I got some other.
But Nigel's playing the long game. It takes time. Like, Nigel Farage, knows he has to professionalise the party, have this kind of facade of, like, you know, we're different, but we are serious. Like, it's a tightrope to walk because people say, oh, he's too much of a politician. They want him to be an outsider. He's got to act like a politician. He's got to play the game. If he wants to win the game, if he wants to get elected, he has to be both popular, which he is, he's good at talking, but also play the game. Rupert Lowe is too naive. And bye-bye, Rupert.
Quotes here we can put on the screen for viewers and listeners. He says also, I'm barely 6 months into being an MP. I'm in the betting to be the next Prime Minister. And that's because Elon Musk backs him. And the quotes on the screen, as you see there, it's absolutely staggering, he says. I don't know where this has come from. He goes on, we have to start developing policy which is going to change the way we govern. I'm not going to be by Nigel's side at the next election unless we have a proper plan to change the way we govern from top to bottom. These are ultimatums in a party of just 5 MPs. And Rupert Lowe, to his credit, by the way, doesn't take any salary to be an MP. He's a self-made millionaire. We can call him that, I'm sure. He's someone who speaks from the lip. He is making a lot of the ground, the running ground, I think, in Parliament. This won't help Nigel Farage today.
He's also said, when he was specifically asked about the potential of a deal with the Conservatives, an electoral pact, which, of course, Nigel Farage has vehemently ruled out, Rupert Lowe said it's too early to say what will happen. You can't...
Well, you don't say that. That's people hate the Tories. You don't say that. It's like you rule it out, and then later on, potentially, when people forget about the Tories, people have got short memories. Like, Rupert Lowe's a liability. And I'm glad. This is a good thing for the country. It means Reform won't get into power. But bloody hell.
Want to rule anything out. So another key policy split. And you're talking about another potential wobble earlier, and that is the Electoral Commission have got their funding figures out.
That's right. So there were three wobbles, I think, for Reform UK that we're reporting today. One about Rupert Lowe there, holding out a bit of flashing some ankle here towards the Tory party. Don't forget, both Henry Baynott and Nigel Farage have said there can't be a merger, but below the line, we know Tory MPs talk about mergers. The first time we've heard the Reform MPs talk about it. That is fascinating. Will he try and do a deal behind the backs of Farage? We don't know. Some not great news on donations. Now, the Tory party raised £1.9 million in the past 3 months at the end of last year. Labour £1 million. Lib Dems 685,000. Reform at the bottom on 281,000 of those four parties. Put it differently, for every £1 raised by Reform, the Tory party raised £6. Now, I've got some quotes here from Reform UK. They say it's worth pointing out that they've gained over 70,000 members in the fourth quarter. So they are gaining members, but the money, the big money, is going to the Tory party when they're on the floor.
And when you consider that only a short while ago, $100 million from Elon Musk, that came and went pretty quickly.
Never confirmed by Reform, no. Mooted in reports.
Nick Candy, of course, then hove interview, promising to raise money. And the situation is such today that the Conservatives have issued, we need to move on, the Conservatives have issued a press release. And to talk about that now, I'm joined by the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp. Chris, welcome to the show. So you're saying here that Reform seems to be at warfare. Tell us more.
It does. Well, good afternoon. Even though Reform only have 5 MPs, they seem to have descended into factional infighting already, with Rupert Lowe questioning Nigel Farage's leadership qualities, saying it's not clear whether or not he has what it takes. And Rupert Lowe described the Reform Party as a protest party with a Messianite leader. And I suppose that is what some people have been thinking quietly for a while now, that it is a protest party with a Messianite leader. Good slogans, I'll give them that. I'll say that much. They got good slogans. But have they got what it takes to develop a proper plan for government? And I don't think they do. It's clear, listening to debates in Parliament, that they don't. I mean, thinking, for example, about the border security bill that Labour introduced, or the border surrender bill, as it might better be known. I was there debating that bill, coming up with a critique of it, coming up with new ideas to clamp down on immigration.
The Tories are in for 14 years, mate. Come on. Let's not play games, mate.
Legal and illegal. And so were lots of Conservative MPs behind me, opposing this Labour government, coming up with concrete, tangible, detailed ideas. No Reform MP even attempted to make a speech in that debate. So when it comes to the serious work...
Because they don't want to solve the problem. Why would they? That's what they're going to run the next election on. Why would they want to solve the problem? This isn't what it's about. Same with Donald Trump. A bipartisan border bill tells the Republicans not to vote for it. That's all they have. They're a one-trick pony.
Work of opposing Labour and coming up with detailed, credible plans. They're just not there. And I think Rupert Lowe has now said out loud what it's been pretty obvious to everybody else.
Mr. Philp, of course, Nigel Farage and indeed Rupert Lowe may counter this by saying it's a bit rich for the Conservatives to talk of divisions. You're two parties within one. That's why you were annihilated at the last election. That half the party, according to Mr. Farage, would be better off joining the Liberal Democrats. The wet Tories, as he called them, split on Brexit, split on net zero. Do you think you have your own divisions within your own party to worry about?
Well, look, there have been problems in the past, but those are behind us. The last election is behind us. We do, of course, have 20 times or 25 times more MPs than Reform do, but we are now united in a way that maybe wasn't the case in the past. If you think about it, since Kemi Badenoch became leader, in fact, since the general election, actually, we've been united. You haven't seen any of those splits that we had in the past, because we're under new leadership. There's a new approach, and we are a united party. And on issues like net zero...
What's the new approach? Just be more culture war, more posturing on immigration? What's the new approach?
I think we're all clear on the Conservative side that we can't have a mad dash to wreck our economy by insisting on Ed Miliband's green madness that, sees
No argument.
no more drilling in the North Sea. I mean, all of us agree, I think, that it's insane to end new exploration of oil and gas, particularly gas in the...
Not really, when climate change is the biggest catastrophe waiting for humanity. Like, we need to do something. And I don't think Labour are doing enough. So, yeah, we need to wean ourselves off the crack.
North Sea, and instead import it from other countries at vast expense. So we all agree that's a crazy idea. And people are paying the price of that in the form of higher bills and, businesses, particularly the businesses that use a lot of energy, like, chemicals industry.
Well, if you would have done something over the last 14 years about climate change, if you would have, actually did your job and start building alternatives, micro nuclear power stations. Like, if you actually tackled this, Labour maybe wouldn't have to go this hard. Like, we're making up lost time.
There's chemicals plants, cement manufacturing, steel.
Mr. Philp, it would also be fair to point out that the Conservative Party had net zero targets in your election manifesto. It was the Tory party that introduced 85% taxes on British gas profits offshore. So you're also divided on...
Yeah, we don't have to listen to the Tories talk about what other people should do when they didn't do it themselves. Let's not take the Tories seriously. So, to conclude... is this the beginning of the end for the Reform Party? Because Rupert Lowe is popular. He's probably more popular than Farage. Will they split off and create a new party? Well, again, I've said it before, you can have a UKIP situation, but I didn't think it would happen this quick. Tell me your thoughts below, and I'll see you in the next video.